Hello, Potato, and welcome to another story time! So today's story, I don't think actually does have any cursing in it. As always, I haven't pre-read it to make sure what the content was. I know what the story is about, but I don't remember the actual individual details of each bit of it. This may well be the last story time for a little while. I'm not totally sure yet. I do have plenty more stories to tell, but I don't know how much more these I'll be doing in the immediate future. But they will come back, even if this is the last one for now. They're not over. So if you've been enjoying them, look forward to that. And if you haven't been enjoying them, well, you can skip these, right? So with that, please, let's all gather around the fire, and I will tell you a story. Dinner and a show. She first wakes up at 7 in the morning. Summer sunlight blazes through the curtains, filling the room with light. The weatherman had forecast a warm, sunny day today, and it looks like he was right. She lazily reaches over and grabs her phone off the nightstand. Trailing its cord behind it, she pulls it to her face. 6:58, it says on the screen. She puts it back. Part of her says to get up and make the most of the day, but another part of her wants to go back to sleep for another hour. A mental argument ensues. Today is finite. There'll be plenty of time to rest later. You have to get ready for the show. Yes, today is finite. So why face it being tired and cranky? You'll have plenty of time to get ready, even if you sleep a little longer. She goes back to sleep. It is shortly after 8 when she wakes again. This time, she does get up. She makes the bed, showers, does her hair, grabs her phone, and heads out to the kitchen. Popping bread into the toaster and a pot into the coffee maker, she looks in the fridge while the toaster toasts and the coffee brews. The roast is defrosted, but she decides that she does want potatoes with it after all, so a trip to the store is definitely in order. Toast on a plate, coffee in a mug. She sits down at the dining room table while she eats her breakfast. She reviews the messages on her phone. Are you sure you won't come with us? We are leaving first thing in the morn, says the text from last night. There's room in the car and there should be enough food. Please come with us. It would be too late to go now even if she wanted to. They're already going to be halfway up the mountain if they're lucky, and if they're unlucky, they're stuck in traffic. And who wants to spend today stuck in a traffic jam? More texts. Some inviting her to parties, some just thanking her for being a friend, a couple inviting her to church. She'd never really stopped to think about how many friends she has. She isn't quite sure how she feels about that. Breakfast finished, she washes the dishes and sets them in the strainer to dry. She decides that she'd better hit the store early. She doesn't know what their stock is going to be like, nor how busy they will be. She gets dressed, grabs her purse, and heads out the door. The roads in town are empty. She sees only a couple of other cars and people on foot. A couple wave to her. She gives them a cheery wave back. The lack of people doesn't surprise her. Many people left town over the weekend, and she's sure that most of the people who are left are probably at church. She's happy to spend today alone, though. She's always been most comfortable with herself. She's a little surprised when she passes the comic shop and can see a bunch of people inside busily playing Dungeons and Dragons or something else she would find equally incomprehensible. Some of the people are even in costume, and that makes her happy. Everyone should spend today doing something they enjoy. When she gets to the store, the lights are all on, the doors are sitting open, but the place seems deserted. Many of the shelves are empty, or nearly so. A lot of people stocked up for today. She's relieved to find the produce section still pretty well stocked, and guesses that most people were getting non-perishable items. She finds a decent-looking bag of potatoes, a few good carrots, and some string beans. She had tinned green beans at home, but figures the dinner today should be special. She is disappointed to find the liquor aisle completely empty. Even the cheap wines are gone. She decides to see if she can get a bottle from the neighbor. There's no checker at the cash registers. She looks around for anyone in a bright blue apron or vest, but finds no one. She waits for a minute, staring at the covers of the magazines on the impulse rack. Is Tomcat getting back together? Asks a tabloid dated for 2 weeks ago. President Obama really a reptilon, declares another. 50 easy recipes that you can make in 30 minutes, screams the cover of a magazine showing a roast turkey that was most certainly not made in 30 minutes. She glances briefly at the cover of Time magazine, featuring a picture of the newly discovered asteroid Gaga. The cover promises an interview with the man who discovered it. Hello, she calls out impatiently, and her voice echoes through the store. After another minute, she walks around the check stand, grabs a paper sack, and bags her own groceries. She stuffs a $20 bill into the slot at the front of the cash register's till, grabs her produce, and heads to the car. For the drive home, she decides to take a different route. This one passes a couple of churches which, judging by the number of cars parked around them, are apparently doing quite a business today. It's not that she's against church per se, but she believes that God can hear her wherever she goes, so there's little reason to spend today there. At home, she checks the time, just after 11. She decides she'd better get the roast going. It takes her the better part of an hour to clean, peel, and cut her potatoes and carrots, prepare the roast, get it into the oven. She sets the timer to remind her to check on the roast in an hour, and leaves the kitchen. Plugging her iPod into the stereo, she floods the quiet house with some light classical to listen to while she does a little cleaning. She vacuums and dusts, taking care as she always does when dusting around her collection of glass penguins. Once she is satisfied that the house is clean enough to keep her from being anxious about it, she checks on the roast. She spoons some of the juices that have flowed out over it, and closes the oven door. She walks to her next-door neighbor's house. She doesn't think they're home, but tries the doorbell anyway. When she gets no answer, she knocks loudly. Still getting no answer, she goes to the conspicuous chunk of granite sitting in the flower bed next to the porch. Picking up the rock, she turns it over and opens the compartment at the bottom. She takes out the hidden key and tosses the rock back into the flower bed, crushing one of the smaller snapdragons. Using the key to open the door, she sticks her head inside and calls, "Hello? Anybody here?" Only silence answers. "Hello?" Still nothing, which is what she had expected. "I'm coming in," she calls, and enters the house. She drops the key on the little table next to the coat rack and closes the front door. She is a little surprised to find the house is a mess. It had always been so tidy when she'd come over before. There are clothes, half-filled suitcases, photo albums, and knickknacks so ugly they could only be family heirlooms all over the front room. It looks like a garage sale exploded in there. She feels a little surge of pride that at least her house is tidy today. She goes into the kitchen to find many of the cabinets sitting open and empty. Luckily, the countertop wine cellar from Sharper Image is still full. She remembers how proud her neighbors had been when they first showed it to her. She was not particularly impressed by it, although she never let them know that, but is quite glad it's here now. She pulls open the cooler's door and starts looking through the bottles of wine, sliding out each shelf to see what they hold. She selects a nice, and she thinks fairly expensive, Chablis, and closes the cooler. She doesn't bother locking the door when she leaves. There's really no point. Once back in her own house, she puts the wine in the fridge, which is probably not the right temperature. But then she never was a real wine snob, and checks on the roast again. Probably another hour, she guesses as she pulls the thermometer's probe out of the meat. She bastes it again. She takes the green beans to the sink, cleans them, breaks off the ends, and places them in a bowl. She sticks the bowl in the fridge. She leaves the kitchen, goes to the bedroom, grabs the book off the nightstand. She'd been trying to finish it last night, but fell asleep. She decides that she's going to finish it. Now's the time. She is just finishing the last page as the timer beeps. She's satisfied with the ending, glad she finished it, glad she hadn't wasted this time reading something crappy and disappointing, something anticlimactic. She places the book down on the coffee table and heads back to the kitchen. She opens the oven and stabs the meat with the thermometer probe again. 150 degrees. Perfect. She grabs the pot holders and carefully removes the pan from the oven, placing it on a cooling rack on the counter. She bastes the roast one more time before grabbing a roll of foil out of the cabinet. She pulls off a big piece of foil to cover the meat with while it rests. Roast done, she grabs the saucepan and steamer basket from another cabinet. She puts the green beans from the fridge into the basket and puts the basket in some water in the saucepan before putting the whole thing on the stove. Once the beans are ready, she plates them. She puts some of the potatoes and carrots on her plate, and then carves herself some roast. She'd originally bought the roast with the idea of inviting people over, but the time for that just got away from her. She places her early dinner on the table, and then retrieves the wine from the fridge. She spends almost 5 minutes looking for a corkscrew before giving up. She remembers her dad's old pocket knife in her desk, and uses the corkscrew on that to open her wine. She quietly eats her supper and sips her wine as classical music continues to flow through her house. She goes back for seconds, something she almost never does, but it seems such a shame to let all that food go to waste. She feels calm. She feels peaceful. She feels like drawing. She finishes her dinner, not rushing through it like she normally would, but savoring each bite. This may be the best roast she's ever made, even if she does say so herself. When she's done eating, she places the plate and silverware in the sink, refills her wine glass — her neighbors do have good taste in wines — and moves back to the living room where she abandons the wine glass on the coffee table. She goes to the garage and gets a foldable card table and a camping chair. She takes these out to the front of the house and sets them up in the street, facing east, so the sun will be at her back. She then runs back inside, grabs a sketch pad and some pencils from her office. She also takes her headphones, her iPod from the stereo, and her wine glass, and goes out front to where her table and chair sit in the empty street. She sits down and starts to draw, while the music of Chopin, Beethoven, and Granados fill her head. She sketches her street, her house, a tree across the street. She sketches her friends using pictures from her phone to aid her. She sketches the future she wanted to have, her with a husband and child, though in the picture they have no faces, standing in front of a large house. The sketches are some of the finest she's ever done. She always knew she was better than some of the stuff she'd been turning out. She just needed the right motivation. She looks at the clock on her phone. 5 o'clock. It's about time for the show to start. She looks up into the eastern sky, and she can see it. Something flying in the air. Flying is not right, she realizes. It's falling. Gaga is falling to earth as a ball of fire with a tail of smoke. The picture on the cover of the magazine didn't do it justice. It's like watching a small city plummeting from the sky. The object falls from sight, obscured by the houses lining the street, but she can see the flash over them as it hits. She can hear the rumble start. She drains her wine glass and places it on the table. She turns up her iPod until the music hurts her ears, drowning out the rumbling noise. And she stands, moving around to the front of the table, facing the direction of the flash. The show has started, and it's too late to do anything other than watch. She can see it. Can see the shockwave distorting the air. She can see it coming. Chopin blares in her ears as a single tear runs down her cheek. A single tear for every lost friend, every missed opportunity, every hope and dream that she had that will never come true. A single tear for what was and what could have been. The shockwave is pushing a wall of wreckage and debris before it. It's a tidal wave of death and destruction. Time seems to slow. She stands there defiantly as the sound and fury rush towards her. She does not run. She does not scream. She stands tall and strong, back straight, chin out, like her father taught her. She stands as the wind picks up around her, as her sketches are thrown from the table onto the ground and into the air. Her wine glass tumbles and shatters unseen and unheard on the street behind her. And then, as if she were never there at all, she is gone. Well, that was a cheerful story, wasn't it? I had forgotten that Dinner and a Show was actually a clever fiction story. I thought it was something I had just written on my own, but I have the notes on here showing that the topic for that week was just up to you. So it is technically something I just wrote on my own. There is no actual prompt for this one. But yeah, that's no cursing, just the end of humanity as we know it. You can definitely tell roughly around when this was written. References in here are fairly dated. iPods and Sharper Image and Tomcat. And the fact that somebody named the asteroid Gaga. Yep, that dates the story pretty hard, doesn't it? I could update this and actually make it a little more current, couldn't I? But I didn't. Maybe someday I will. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this story, and I hope you've enjoyed our time together. If you did, please remember to give this video a like, and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and ring the little bell icon if you have. And with that, we will bring today's story time to a close. Thank you for watching, or I guess listening. This wasn't really a very visual experience, was it? And I will see you in the next video.